Did you hear about these new shock gloves that ICE wants to buy? Oh my God. What could possibly go wrong, right? ICE calls them conductive distraction and de escalation devices. Lovely alliteration. They must have hired an English major in their marketing department. Conductive distraction and de escalation devices. Now, if that's a little bit too much of a mouthful, they also just call it G.L.O.V.E. That's the acronym G.L.O.V.E. That stands for Generated Low Output Voltage Emitter. Now, listen, anytime you have the word voltage in a tool that you're supposedly using for law enforcement, it's that can never be a good thing. But anyway, so I'm just going to call it the glove, even though I call it, informally, I call it the electrocution gloves, because that's what it is. I mean, you're basically sending electricity through these gloves so that you can control how people behave. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit. I guess you heard they're going to be spending anywhere from $10 million to $20 million on these gloves. And how much do you want to make a bet that the training they're going to have with these gloves is going to be kind of equivalent to the training they've had with their guns and all their other training, which is absolutely horrific? And, I'm sure you understand that the reason the training is so horrible, not just with ICE, but also with the Border Patrol, it's so bad because they're trying to hire 10,000 deportation officers, ICE officers, as soon as possible. They're trying to do this 2,000, they call it 2,000 deportations a day. It's not. It's 2,000 arrests a day. And then normally, unless the person has a final order of deport where they've already gone through immigration court, the vast majority of these people are getting put into deportation proceedings. That's under the Department of Justice. They don't have the judges. They don't have the judges that they need. Those courts are absolutely swamped. I retired last year in 2025, and they were swamped. I mean, it's 10 times worse now. I don't know if it's 10 times, but it's a lot worse now. They're also firing immigration judges if they think the judges are approving asylum too often. So they're having a hard time hiring anybody. They're firing the ones that they don't like, that aren't just shipping people home without any due process. So anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the glove. In plain English, this is a wearable glove. It's an electrical weapon that ICE officers can use to cause pain and that's, I'm not being facetious about that. That's the whole objective, is to cause pain. Two things: to cause pain and to temporarily interfere with the person's ability to control their muscles, right? One of the things that law enforcement does, both the police and supposedly immigration, when they have a new tool that they're training people on, for instance, a taser, whoever is getting trained has to get tased. And it's the same thing with these gloves. They have to know what this feels like. Well, I watched some of those videos, and these are some big strapping guys. These aren't some little, 5'7" people. These are big 6'2" people, and they're going down on the ground. The one guy was interviewed by NPR, and he said that the pain was so severe that it made his knees buckle. Not good, right? However, most of the quotes that I've been hearing is that the officers are saying, yes, it was painful, but it was temporary. It was like, it was no big deal. No big deal. Well, as you know, each person experiences pain a little bit differently, right? And what might not hurt a guy who's 6'2" and 240 pounds could do some serious damage to someone who's only like 5'8" and 180 pounds. You have to understand, first of all, it's not a taser, okay? A taser, as you know, it looks like a gun and it shoots out probes that go into the person's body. That's not what this does. This is an actual electric shock that is given to the body through this glove. Apparently, it works better when it's just on skin as opposed to if you grab somebody who has a shirt on. And what are they going to do in the winter when people have these heavy coats on? And suddenly this doesn't work as well. I mean, what's wrong with just using manpower to bring these guys down? Why do you have to do an electric shock? I don't get it. Maybe if you have an opinion about this that differs from mine, please feel free to leave a comment. But I think this is extreme. You know, we're already having so many problems with ICE and a lack of training. And they're just, well, Homan actually said, Homan, he's the border czar, right? Homan actually said that he thought that these gloves were a good idea because, well, it's better than shooting them. It's better than shooting them? Yeah, I guess. But one of the things is that it's supposed to be, you give the shock, the guy goes down, and that's it, right? But you know that's not going to be it. They're going to give them a shock if they won't put their hands behind their back, right? And they're just going to keep holding on to them. It's supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to be give the shock and get off. You know they're not going to do that. You know they're not going to do that. According to the manufacturer, they're not supposed to be using these on the elderly. Since when has law enforcement ever considered, this is a 69-year-old man, maybe we shouldn't beat the shit out of him? I mean, I watch the civil rights lawyer, John Bryan. I've seen lots of videos where police officers have attacked older people. They don't care. They're not supposed to be used on children. I have also seen videos, not of ICE. I've seen them of police officers where, you know, they empty out this car and there's like 4 or 5 kids and they make all the kids lay on the ground just like they're common criminals when they're just children sitting in a van. I mean, come on. I don't know. They're not supposed to be used on pregnant women. Well, obviously, if she's 9 months pregnant and it's summertime and she doesn't have a jacket on or anything, you could tell that she's pregnant. But if she does have a jacket on, you can't tell that she's pregnant. You can't tell that she's pregnant. How about if she's only 4 months pregnant? And you know what they're going to do. You absolutely know. My phone. You absolutely know this is what they're going to... Cayate, boss. What the frig? I always leave this in the other room, and today I brought it in here. I don't know why. Okay. You know what they're going to do, because they've already done this. When they ask people, they have stopped many, many U.S. citizens. And they want to see their papers. They want proof. They say, I'm a U.S. citizen. I was born here. Well, let's see your birth certificate. Well, I just happen to have my birth certificate. And they'll look at the birth certificate and say, that's a fake. That's a fake. They did it to Elaine Miles. I've mentioned her numerous times now in videos. She's a Native American actress that you've seen. She was on Northern Exposure as the doctor's secretary. She was in Smoke Signals. I mean, she's a very well-known person. She got stopped by ICE, and she showed them her tribal card to show that she's a member of a tribe in Oregon. I forget which one it is. The first thing the ICE officer said was, that's a fake. And then another officer said, anybody can make those. So you know that when a woman says to this guy, don't shock me, don't shock me, I'm pregnant. Oh, sure you're pregnant. Of course you're pregnant. You don't look pregnant to me. I'm 4 months pregnant. Don't shock me. Oh, sure you're pregnant, sure. They're not going to believe him. And they're going to do whatever the hell they feel like doing. And they're not going to be held accountable for it. I don't even think that, supposedly they're going to start using these cameras. Vamos a ver. We shall see. We shall see if that happens. But one of the things that's a little bit different about these gloves is that the newer models, not the first model that they were looking at, but the newer model, they have some kind of recording device so that they know when it was activated. I don't know. I mean, that sounds better than not having it because the officers are going to say, I didn't shock anybody. No, I didn't shock anybody. They're overreacting. They're so dramatic. You know these people. They're liars. Right? They're at least if there's some kind of recording device for this, the ICE officers can't bullshit about it. They'll know that it was activated. And I would think they would know how long it was activated. Just to tell you a little bit about how these things operate. The current model that they're discussing, which is called a CT G.L.O.V.E, it uses a rechargeable lithium battery. And the battery is only about 3.7 volts, right? You think, oh, that's no big deal. But the electronics inside the glove convert that into a much higher voltage. I think they said, yeah, approximately 380 volts. I mean, that sounds terrifying to me. I didn't look it up. I was going to, and I didn't look it up what that is the equivalent of. But 380 volts does not sound good to me. And another thing to keep in mind is that it's not necessarily just the voltage that makes this so dangerous. It depends on how long, as I mentioned earlier, how long they're holding on to the person and that they're sending out this voltage. I mean, the purpose of this glove is not supposed to knock somebody out unconscious. It's not supposed to, like, kill somebody, be lethal, although I bet you it could be. I mean, how about if somebody's got, like, a pacemaker or something? The whole purpose is to temporarily stop the person from resisting. Give them enough pain that they stop resisting. So, I mean, the whole purpose is to cause pain, but the pain is supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to provide law enforcement with an alternative to a more dangerous form of force, which, as Homan said, it's better than shooting them. I don't think these people realize that they're dealing with human beings. I really don't. I think they just think that these people are animals. It seems like they think they're something less than human. Sounds very Nazi-ish, doesn't it? I mean, the Gestapo would have loved to have had these gloves. Are you kidding? So, ICE's explanation, or argument I should say, is relatively simple. They say sometimes they have encounters with people who resist being arrested. So when a person resists an officer's attempt to arrest them, ICE's argument is that, well, we need options. Like, why overpowering them isn't enough? I don't know. So there's this whole spectrum of force, right? Like, he starts with verbal commands, then physical restraint, then maybe pepper spray or a taser, and then, of course, at the other end is deadly force. So this is going to fit somewhere in between a taser and deadly force. They're basically saying, hey, there's a difference between resisting arrest and having the officer attacked. So if we can use a tool, that stops a person from attacking an officer, that's better than us just shooting him. It doesn't matter how many times I say it, that's never going to sound right to me. I mean, the fact that you have to, in England, do the bobbies still only use clubs? I don't even think they carry guns. At least they didn't back in the day. I remember when I was young, that was one of the big things about the cops in England, is that they didn't carry guns. They just had a stick, a nightstick, right? That's all they had when my father was was young, he used to tell us that there was a cop that walked the beat. This I'm just talking law enforcement, police. I'm not talking ICE. That there was a an officer that walked the beat, right? And he knew all the kids and he knew where everybody lived, and he only had a club. So why do we have to have these other things, the tasers and guns and electrical shock gloves? You know, there's a big difference between somebody who's refusing to put his hands behind his back and somebody who's physically attacking an officer. So those two situations cannot reasonably be treated as the same thing, but you know they're going to, right? And here's something that's pretty interesting. The manufacturer, these are made in Kentucky, by the way, the manufacturer's own materials say the glove should not be used as punishment or simply because someone is verbally defiant or belligerent. That's important, right? Because if ICE is going to use these devices, then the public deserves to know when they can and when they can't use those devices. We need to know what the rules are. I don't know what the rules are for a taser for a regular police officer. But these gloves in particular, they're not supposed to be used on children. They're not supposed to be used on the elderly. They're not supposed to be used on pregnant women. And they're not supposed to be used on the disabled, severely disabled, let's say. But think about that for a minute. I mean, when ICE goes into someone's house, let's say they have a final order of deport for Jose somebody, and they're looking for him and they get into the house, who is around them? They're surrounded by family. They're surrounded by little kids. They're surrounded by abuelas and abuelos. They're surrounded by a whole family of people, not just the one guy they're looking for. So this is not just like a theoretical issue. This is going to be, from the day they start using these, this is going to be an issue for them. That they're using these gloves on people that they're not supposed to be. And in my ever so humble opinion, that they're using them for a longer period of time, holding their hand on the arm of somebody for longer than they're supposed to. So what I'm trying to say is that the training that they're going to get on these is going to be enormously important, but you know, if the past is any prediction of the future, the past training they've got has been abysmal. I don't think this training's going to be any better. I really don't. I don't even understand why they think they need these things. It's just one more thing that can go horribly wrong. And finally, let's talk about the money. $20 million. You know ICE has a budget like off the charts, right? So they've got the money. 20 million bucks for this. And there's another issue too. The procurement has been described as a no bid or sole source arrangement involving Compliant Technologies. That's the company that makes the gloves. Now let me clarify that for a second. A sole sourced federal contract. It's not automatically illegal or improper. You know, the government has circumstances when they want to buy equipment or whatever from a single supplier. They don't want different versions from different people. Totally get that. But when we're talking about $20 million of taxpayer money and a device that's designed to deliver electric shocks to people, I think the public has a right to know, who are you getting this from and how are you getting it? A no bid contract? Why is that? Boy, that sounds familiar. Wasn't that the same thing they have with the reflecting pool? I might be wrong about that. Leave a comment if I'm wrong. But why this company? Why this device? Why not something else? Were competing technologies even considered? I haven't heard anything about the other options that they had. I haven't heard anything about that. How many gloves are they going to buy for $20 million? Which agents are going to get them? Are they all going to get them? Is it just going to be, if there's like 6 guys to go out on a raid, just one of them has it? I mean, I want to know what the heck is going on. How much training are they going to get? What's the cost of the training? And ICE never wants to give any of this information out. It's unbelievable. You know, the police officers in local townships and counties and the state police and stuff, they are required to give information out to the public at times. ICE seems to think, not us. We don't have to say anything. We're going to do what we want to do. Just trust us. You can't handle the truth. Oh, wait, that was the Marines. But you know what I mean. They just think, hey, we're in charge of immigration. Buzz off. We can do whatever the hell we want. And where the frig, well, I've been saying this for years. Where the frig is Congress? They're supposed to have some oversight, aren't they? I haven't heard one congressman. I'm getting all kinds of commercials for Brian Fitzpatrick because he's up for re-election. Lots of commercials. I don't hear him say anything about ICE or having some kind of control over ICE, some kind of moderation where you're actually checking what ICE is doing. No. They're still talking about the ballroom, that he knocked down half of the White House for a ballroom that he never got permission to do. That's what they're talking about. Great. One more thing I wanted to mention. You know, this technology is not actually new. It's not like it just came out last year. Supposedly, like correctional facilities, meaning prisons, correctional facilities have used a version of these for a number of years. There was a jail in Kentucky. So we're not talking about some experimental device that nobody's ever used before. They've been used in the prisons. But as you can imagine, there's a controversy. Por supuesto, there's a controversy. There have been lawsuits alleging misuse of the device, including allegations involving a man's death in a Kentucky jail. See, what am I saying? You say, oh, it's not lethal. It could be. It depends on how it's used. So, one last thing I'm going to leave you with. You might be in favor of this. You might think this is okay. But this is how I look at it. Does giving ICE officers this device reduce the possibility of serious physical harm being done to somebody? Or does it just make the use of force easier? I think it's the latter. Supposedly, you're not going to, the individual won't have burn marks, they're not going to have scars, like a lot of times you have with the tasers. You're not going to have that stuff. But it doesn't mean that harm isn't done. I mean, even batons cause a lot of harm. I think the bigger problem is that it's just one more tool that they can use that makes using force easier. And so they're going to use it. And little by little, there's going to be, you know, just because the prisons have had a couple of allegations and some litigation going against them, you know, how long is it going to take? I mean, we could have a betting pool. What is that? There's a new, okay, never mind. I don't know what it is. But there's a way that you can bet on like regular things, right? Kashi? I don't know. But, you know, you could have some kind of a betting pool at your office. How long is it going to take until somebody is killed by one of these gloves? Or not by the gloves. The gloves don't kill. It's like guns don't kill. No, it's not the gloves. It's by ICE and the officer who uses those gloves. They're the ones who are killing people, not the gloves themselves. The misuse of the gloves. And I don't see how this can ever have a good ending. I really don't. And meanwhile, we taxpayers cough up to $20 million so that ICE can electrocute people. So there's some final questions that we have to think about. You know, will every activation automatically record? The newer device has that capability, but is ICE going to require it? Is ICE going to require that before you activate the gloves, You have to turn on your body camera. I'd like to be in that betting pool. I'm going to say no. I don't even think they want those cameras on in the first place. You know, what happens after somebody is shocked? Okay? They've resisted arrest and they have been shocked. Now what happens? I would think that medical attention would automatically be called. You'd have to call an ambulance to have somebody check this person out to make sure that they're physically okay. But what do you think the odds are that ICE would require that? Will the activation of the device have to be reported? Does the supervisor have to review it? I would think so. But with this administration, who the heck knows? So, in my ever so humble opinion, you know, the federal government is going to give immigration agents a device capable of delivering painful electrical shocks, then I think the rules governing that device they need to be crystal clear. We should know when agents can use it and when agents can't use it. And we should have a reliable record of every single deployment. There should be some record of what the heck happened. You know, because the question isn't, does the glove work? Is it going to keep people from resisting arrest? That's not the question. The question is, will it be used responsibly? And as I've already mentioned, the track record with this administration and DHS is abysmal. So anyway, leave your comments. Let me know what you think. If you're not a subscriber, please hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. And hopefully it will be something more uplifting than, is our government allowed to send electrical shocks through us, or aren't they? Apparently, it looks like they're leaning towards that they can. Ay, ay, ay. God. All right. All right. I'm going to leave it at that because this freaking administration. Okay, I gotta go. Thank you so much for reaching the end of the video, and I'd love to hear your comments. Let me know where you're from, what you think about the things. It's very hard to get people to leave comments. I don't know why. They also don't even click like. You know, if you like it, click like. It doesn't cost anything. But please leave a comment. I'd like to hear, because this is not something that has happened with ICE yet. I'd like to know what your opinion is. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.